KLTV sound check, KLTV sound check.
I wouldn't know, of course. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the VOCC. Glad to see all your faces. We'll start with the pledge if you want to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Commissioner Mortensen, the minutes.
Good morning, everyone. As usual, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Any corrections, comments, anything on it? Not seeing any. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'll run down through the consent agenda. Call for bids, on-call services. There's been a change in law, and it's affected the way we do business on small projects that need to get done quickly. So at this point in time, we have to set up these on-call services with different trades. I think Sean, you said about 11 different trades, plumbers and all those different things that we'll have set up on this on-call bid. So it would shorten we don't have to send everyone out to notice and keep the time short. They've changed the law. We used to be able to just have a contract when it was a small enough bid, but now we need to do it a different way. So we have these people on call, and that's what this call for bids is. They'll be going out to places and they'll give us some bids. Request for a proposal for entities interested in operating a coordinated entry access point. We haven't put out a request for proposal and stated either 4 or 5 years, 4 years at least. And we've had a couple entities. Right now we have 3 that do coordinated entry. And Gina can correct me if I'm wrong, but coordinated entry to access some of the services that the state offers for others. Some of them you have to go through this coordinated entry process to be evaluated for those services. So it's we have 3 that do it right now. We've had a couple other ask about it. So Health Department is putting out a request for proposal that'll go out and we'll see what we get back. It doesn't, we talked a little bit yesterday, are we looking at an increased cost? And really not. We get a certain amount from the state to do this, and it's a reimbursement deal. As they help people, then they bill us and we reimburse. In the last few years, we have not spent the dollars that are out there. So my guess is it's not really. Some entities that do it now may see decrease because they'll use another entity, but I don't think overall it really is going to have much effect.
So, Mr. Chairman, for those who might not be aware, coordinated entry is for people seeking assistance because they're homeless. And so the coordination is to make sure they're evaluated, and then the proper agency is then suggested for whatever condition that they're confronting as a homeless person. So.
Okay, so those are the 2 call for bids we have going out. So on that coordinated entry. Is your mic
on? Okay, there we go. So how busy are these guys? I mean, are they seeing 10 people a day, 20? None?
I don't think it's that busy. Gina would have better.
Morning, Gina.
Hi, Tim. Gina James, Health and Human Services. We see there's about 1,000 to 1,200 individuals each year that connect with one of these coordinated entry access points, and they do only reimburse us for the coordinated entry activities that they work on. And so what we reimburse for their time depends on how many people come to their entity and are asking for coordinated entry services.
So, I mean, what happens when you go to something like this and you're homeless? I mean, what's the end goal? Do they looking to put them over at home, Hopeless Village, or, what do they call that again? Camp Hope, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Hope Village. They will talk to the individual about what their housing situation currently is. They will review with them. There's a whole list of resources locally that individuals can connect with. If they are currently unsheltered, they will talk about different shelter options that we have in town and encourage them to connect with those options. So they'll go through kind of this list of resources that may be able to help them in their situation and encourage the individual to connect with those resources.
Does this resource apply only to homeless? It's just anybody walks in and, or do they have to be homeless?
No, anybody can walk in and ask. If you are literally homeless, there's this additional step that we take with entering the data in HMIS, and most of the referrals that we're able to do that are required to come through coordinated entry are for unsheltered individuals. So
Yeah,
that's
I
how
think
we,
of coordinated entry as sort of a triage.
sure, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Gina.
Yep.
The one thing I'm not sure of is, what is what would make an agency interested in becoming
An access point. If individuals often are reaching out to them or saying, you know, we're homeless, what do we do? How do we need help? They may be interested in being an access point themselves. I know this came up with CAP because everyone who is on HIN and interested in a HIN housing referral has to go through coordinated entry to be eligible for that referral. So if people go to CAP, then CAP says you have to go to coordinated entry, and they're not an access point. So they're sending people around. So I think there's interest in that sense if people are coming to their door asking specifically, and then they have to send them somewhere else.
So
for that.
prior to being an access point, they would have been providing that in a perverted definition of pro bono?
They would, hopefully, I hope all agencies will, you know, encourage individuals to connect with resources that are currently available in the community. And I think agencies do that. This,
Which lets them get paid for it.
right.
Okay.
The difference is that you have individuals who are looking for housing, and for the programs that are required to take referrals, we end up sending people around to make sure they're connecting with coordinated entry so they get entered in to be eligible for a referral.
So it's not surprising that the agencies that are doing coordinated entry right now are those who do have a lot of access to people with those kinds of needs. For example, Community House, that's our #1 provider of shelter services. Family Health Center, constantly dealing with people who are homeless, needing medical aid. And the third one is the Emergency Support Shelter for victims of domestic violence. Almost by definition are homeless. So other agencies that are interacting with homeless right now might find it advantageous financially to get access to coordinated entry. If they're already seeing those folks, they're giving lots of advice anyway. So for example, you mentioned CAP with the HEN program. That's probably the second largest provider of services to the homeless. Again, pretty tightly controlled by the state. The state has to define who's eligible. And then you find out, then you go to get the supplies with HEN, and they tell you, oh, but you got to go someplace else to do coordinated entry. So eliminating barriers, I guess.
Go ahead.
So just a little clarification. So under coordinated entry, I presume for these 1,200 individuals a year, a lot of them are repeats in some way or another, or have been through it once before. So there should be some history with that these agencies or someone would have. And then, of course, you say access point, so there's other access points. So there's got to be duplication in the system that should be some way or another coordinated or available for a coordinated entry person or agency.
Yeah, so if someone comes into any of the access points and they get to the stage where they're entering the data in the state system, any of the access points will be able to see that that person is already entered, or if they've already had their screening done, they'll be able to see that. So they wouldn't be doing it again. If they need to update some information, they can do that really quickly, but they don't need to, go through the whole process again. And then all of the information, all the data from all the access points is information that we access at Health and Human Services, and we're the ones that look to make a referral. So we'll keep track of who's already been referred. And so they won't come up for a referral again, for example, if they end up showing back up in the system and stuff like that. So there's ways to look at who's coming in, who's connecting multiple times and things like that.
So I'm presuming, hopefully, that when you gather this for our commissioners here and for the constituents of the county, of the 1,200, whatever that is, there are some things that you can say, well, these have been repeats, these are new, some of these are from Portland or Vancouver or whatever. There should be some data that are shared with of our community that who we're servicing.
Sure. I have a report from 2023 I'm happy to share that covers some of that demographic information about who's connecting, just the kind of the basic demographic information.
The foundation of that is this coordinated entry program then?
For coordinated entry, yeah. Who's connecting with coordinated entry, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, gentlemen. Morning, Gina. I just have a quick question. I want to make sure I understand this. So the request for proposal is for coordinated entry access points, more of them. Do they all offer the same program, the same service?
Yes, it's a standardized assessment process.
So it's the people who are beyond the coordinated entry that offer the different services that they direct them to.
Right. So coordinated entry is sort of about gathering some information, referring to mainstream services as needed. And then beyond that, we at our department, we will look at when the programs that are required to take referrals from coordinated entry have a program opening, they reach out to us and say, hey, we need 2 referrals for our program, for our housing program. And then we will sort through the data and we'll send them 2 referrals.
So do we need more access points because the 3 that we have aren't able to handle the load?
So Commissioner Dahl mentioned the cost. We're not looking to increase the cost, but if there's a way to increase the access, and I brought up the example of not having to send people from one place to another. There's a lot of confusion that happens when you have to do that with individuals and they kind of get lost in where do I have to go now? And so we haven't sent a request out for 4 or 5 years. So we want to just kind of reevaluate who our access points are. Is this the best way to have this set up? And do we want to look at additional access points?
Okay. Yeah. The reason I ask is because if of the confusion, it would make sense to me that if we only had one access point that everybody went to, and then we don't have to send them all over the place, and then we just deal with one.
We used to have that model with just one. We have found it beneficial to have multiple, and partly because some of these access points are where people already are or they naturally go. Some places prefer to go to one over the other for different reasons or different experiences they've had. So we have found it beneficial to have a couple access points in that sense, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We don't, if we get, say, a dozen interested parties, we don't have to open a dozen. We can sit and make a determination what makes sense and what would be the best one. So it's not, this will find out who has interest, and then it's our job to try and whittle down to who makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So when we first started the coordinated entry, we had a recommendation from a coordinating committee on the homeless task force back in the day. And they recommended a brand new agency that was kind of new to the scene, set up to do specifically services for the homeless. That was a group called Love Overwhelming, and everybody had to be referred to Love Overwhelming. So there were a lot of requests from other agencies to have that access point, and we certainly agreed to do that. That's the way we moved to the 3. And interestingly, Love Overwhelming was not allowed to continue, or they didn't bid. I'm not quite sure how that went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gina.
Yep.
Agreements, contracts, bid awards. We have an interlocal agreement with Wahkiakum County for coroner services. This past legislative session, they passed RCW, where some of the smaller counties have prosecutor / coroner. Your prosecutor is also your coroner. They're not going to allow that anymore. So these smaller counties that had that, Wahkiakum was one, their options were these smaller counties, they'll have to decide to work with another county, a larger county that has the service, or they'll have to make the decision to do the expense and have a coroner in addition to the prosecutor. The prosecutor can't fill both roles anymore under Washington State RCW. So Wahkiakum is one of those that are affected by that, and they've been working with our local coroner, and that's where this interlocal agreement comes from. And I know Commissioner Mortensen, you had some questions on this?
I do. Do you want me to hold it until you're all done, or this is good enough?
I think it's.
Okay, I'll go
Yeah.
ahead. So I was hoping that Christie or the coroner would be on board on what would be page 4, number 4, item 2 of the agreement lists some costs, and I want, I said page 4, I should have, yeah, page 4. It lists some costs, and I don't recall them. I recall higher costs, and I also am concerned, we have a fixed price contract which has a cap on it with Dr. Nelson. He's our on-call guy, and I don't know how we are going to deal with Wahkiakum needing a pathologist. You know, do we chew into our allowance or not? I should preface it. By the way, I in no way am trying to say anything negative about this contract or Wahkiakum, because I think it's really good for us to help them as we can. So that's not the issue. Just some clarity. Then another issue is everything we do has administrative costs. So I don't see anything on here, and so the numbers look a little on the lower side than I recall. And that's item 2 on page 4, and item number 4, it says the fees in this agreement are subject to change by mutual agreement of the parties. I'm just curious, how do you manage that? Because if our fees go up, and Wahkiakum says we can't afford it, so we won't pay the higher fees, can we refuse the service, or what exactly is? And I don't know how that wanted to be managed. So I was hoping to get answers there.
So if you turn to the previous page at the very bottom, it says that there's a flat annual fee of $5,000.
Yeah,
And we talked about that yesterday, and that was supposed to cover the administrative costs.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So what we see doesn't have anything in addition attached to it.
Right.
It's just that clarity I'm looking for. And then
Yeah.
how we manage the contracts, because we know that the pathologists are in very high demand, and somehow we managed to get some very nice contracts. I'd hate to have to go back out and find another pathologist.
Yeah, I might have looked at this I think I looked at this a little different. I looked at it as, I know our autopsies are more expensive, but I looked at it as just the services of the coroner going out and doing that, and the autopsies is separate. And I don't know if that's correct or not. That's just the way
Yeah, I might be being sloppy here with pathologists, pathologists. I know that the coroner has to do autopsies, which typically will include pathology, and I lumped those all together, maybe improperly. But that's why I was just asking as
Yeah.
opposed to anything.
And I think the plan is designed for the first year to find out what the actual costs are. They had to start with some place. Then after a year, they'll true it up for the actual costs that they keep. That's why they have that flexibility on adjusting the costs
Yeah,
based on what it actually costs them during this first year. Because you're right, we don't really know exactly how much it's going to cost.
yeah, or what are the unintended consequences?
we're trying, but we haven't been.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
because of what I said earlier about we want to help Okaikam, I'm not going to object to this. It's just something we should understand.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Then the last thing on consent agenda is just correspondence, retirement letter to Denise Kramer, congratulating her 31 years of service in the assessor's office. And that is the consent agenda.
In terms of correspondence and letters and notices, we should probably let people know that probably next week we'll have a letter appointing the large industry representative to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. That's been vacant for some time. It's a representative from one of the paper companies.
Pleasure on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve today's consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. One motion item.
Mr. Chairman, I did earlier contact the auditor there, wondering whether elections needed to or did want to say anything. I don't know whether your time commitment is such you have to get back down or not. I leave it up.
You only have one motion item.
Okay. You know how loquacious this young lady is.
So good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. We have one motion item in front of you today, which is a request to approve the local agency agreement supplement number 1 and federal aid prospectus for the countywide guardrail project. The supplement will add an additional $509,200, bringing the total up to $537,200 for this project. This is a federal aid safety project, and this is the project where we are going out and adding guardrail in new locations. The goal of these safety grants is the stated state and federal goal of target zero of trying to help eliminate injury and deaths due to road accidents.
I think we talked yesterday at our workshop about how about replacing the damaged ones, and that is a different program. It's on our dollar. Our local dollars go for the repair.
Yes, our local dollars go for the repairs, and we are currently preparing that contract to go out for bid. Also, winter is a good time to be repairing contracts doing repair and new contracts because they're not busy with large construction projects. So it gives the contractors a good filler also.
And when guardrails are damaged, if it's an accident that's reported, we can do cost recovery?
Correct. When there's a guardrail that's damaged, based on whatever the current price we have for guardrail, we submit a bill to the driver and their insurance company and try to recover our costs to replace those guardrails.
Thanks.
I've got to ask you one engineering question. I assume there are specs on the guardrail that say how much energy they have to absorb before they yield and how they yield?
Yes, there's a whole standards, and this is what one of the things they use test dummies in certain cars. So there's a MASH standard, which I forget what the acronym stands for, and they are constantly upgrading them. Some of the new guardrail is actually changes to end sections because you want them to break away in a certain way so that it doesn't impale the driver. So the end sections are constantly being tested and updated. And we work when we're doing some of these to replace some of our old end sections, which are not to the current standards.
And there's a big difference between crashing into a Jersey wall and into a
Guardrail, yes. And the guardrail and the Jersey barrier were both originally designed. It's more to keep you, to help. I don't know why they use the term guardrail. It should be guide rail because it's supposed to guide you back onto the road. That's why a lot of times you'll see them broken and they're just kind of belled out. That is exactly what a guardrail is supposed to do. It's supposed to prevent you from going over the edge and push you back onto the road.
Like bumper guards
Thank
in
you.
bowling.
Yes, it's like doing duck pin bowling with your bumpers.
That's the same technology that's been around for 100 years almost, isn't it?
For the guardrails,
Yeah.
yes. And they're constantly making changes, so.
Yeah, because the bumper makes me think, could we do a better job? Like suppose it were flypaper and the guy just stuck his car there. Anyhow, Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion?
Sure.
I move that we approve the prospectus and local agency agreement for county-wide guardrail project as has been presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing, you ever see the ones on the freeway and they're the cable? You know,
Yeah.
want to know what motorcycle people call those?
Yes,
Cheese graters.
yeah.
We don't like them.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, we have Carolyn here. Do you want to talk? Because we had a question on election and we do have, I think Dana and Christie, and we'll ask those.
We can do that at another time too. For
Are you
that
sure?
matter. Oh, yeah, yeah, because
Okay.
it's already approved.
Okay, good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Carolyn Fundingsland, Cowlitz County Auditor. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. I've brought a lot of percentages, turnouts, comparisons, but what I am guessing is on everybody's mind is ballot box security. So just to start, there's a lot that I personally don't disclose when I'm talking in these meetings. I came to an earlier meeting, and if you were here, you may remember that Department of Homeland Security was warning us that the online chatter is to destroy our ballot boxes, and they were instructing them on the ways to make these incendiary devices and how to do it. So we have been prepared. You should know that they're constantly monitoring those online chats. And we did know about it. I shared it in this meeting. And for that reason, we've done some things with our schedule in elections with ballot box collection. Everybody knows we pick up ballots every day. Well, in this election, we're picking up now 7 days a week, some boxes twice a day. We're trying to narrow down the window of opportunity for bad actors. And in addition, I've been working with all the chiefs and the sheriffs in all the cities and county. I'm in contact with them almost daily, actually. They all have additional patrols on our boxes. And I have to say thank you to our own county services. It really does take a village. Currently, IT and Public Works have jumped to our aid. My goal is to get cameras on all of the boxes, but you wouldn't believe the details that are bogging down that effort. But what I can come up with is something similar to a game cam, and they're being installed today. So, I mean, overnight they were on it. So thank you to those departments.
I was just thinking about another possibility for protection. And once the ballot's in the ballot box and it is somehow eliminated, fused, or destroyed, you don't know who put the ballot in there in the sense of, did my vote count or not count? I imagine ballot boxes in the future may actually have a scanner in there. So once it slips through the lip, it's got a picture of it.
You are absolutely right. In fact, there are vendors that have already created specs of those devices. Think of it as similar to one of those red box DVD devices, very similar. However, every solution comes with its own challenges. Now you're talking a very significant investment in each of these mandatory cities for drop boxes. So if it's no longer just a hunk of steel that we're placing, now it's a kind of an expensive piece of technology that we need to figure out how to protect. But yes, you are absolutely right. There are currently models being built.
And in addition to what you just described, one of the problems is, what do you do with the data? If it's in the box and the box is destroyed, you haven't done anything. So you've got to communicate the data out. How do you do that? You do it through RF. How robust is that? Well, you can make it robust to the point where it is jammed in some way, or somebody puts a Faraday cage on the thing, and next thing you know, you don't have anything. So you're right, it's got a lot of problems.
Every solution has its own problem.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of calls, concerned voters wanting to revert back to voting in person, and this wouldn't be an issue. And what I would like to share is that they have their own problems. So the technique, there's bad guys everywhere. They're all around us. We live in a different environment now. And in the polling locations, what they're doing is swatting. That's the new, I hate that I even know what that word means. Swatting is overwhelming our responders with bomb threats. So you take a polling location and you call in bomb threats, and you've now successfully interrupted the voting process. There isn't a perfect method, but each has its own challenges. And something that I also haven't shared with everybody, because we don't like to give a roadmap for bad actors, but it did hit the media. Our ballot boxes are equipped with fire suppressant units. So the ballots that burned in Clark County, it would have been a lot worse without the fire suppression units. So, right now, and Clark County had cameras on their boxes. If you didn't see the news, we've identified the car. We have a description, and it was the same car in all 3 attempts, the 2 Vancouver attempts and the Oregon. So they're hot on his heels. So there are also devices out there that detect any type of tremors that we're looking into. So if there was any kind of, if somebody ran into it, any kind of shaking, basically, we would get a text alert to know that something was going on. We're also looking into those.
How are we doing with the returns now?
You know, I feel a little better with returns. I was pretty disgusted last week. We were lagging behind when you compare this election to the 2020. We had gotten 10% behind in returns. And as of yesterday in 2020 compared to yesterday here, we are currently at a 35%, and in 2020, we are at 41. So we closed the gap a little bit, just 6% behind. I'm hoping to continue to see that gap close, and we see the same 84-ish% turnout.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Just let me know if you have any other questions.
Anything, I will touch on this real quick only because it surprised me. I was at Castle Rock City Council last evening, and our building and planning was there, by the way. We're working on a contract with Castle Rock to do their work instead of having to, they use a firm, I think, out of Olympia now. So anyway, that might be changing. But they had to return, they had a grant for 700,000 that was to do some improvements to their boat ramp. And they had gone through the study phase, and last night they had to vote to return that money because they were told by the, and they were told by the another letter agency, the National Oceanographic, whatever, that they would not be able to build there because of, it would imperil chum salmon.
NOAA.
Okay,
yeah, they have.
And the only reason I bring it up, and I don't know if their reasons are legitimate or not, I don't know that much about the project, but the fact that you have all these letter agencies that get involved with decisions in Cowlitz County, Washington, and all over, it just, if it drives me crazy. I hope it drives you crazy. It ought to, because it's insane. It's insane.
There may be another ramification of that too, which is classic. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, began long ago, and I always thought about it as just applying to the oceans. Well, talk about creep.
Yeah.
We're only 150 miles off the ocean.
Now they're
here.
in the Cowlitz River up at Castle Rock, along with Department of Ecology, Fish and Wildlife, Forest Service, Army Corps.
So that is the agency that is charged under federal rules and regulations for enforcing the Endangered Species Act for salmon.
Yeah.
So that's the connection.
Yeah.
And it's part of the Department of Commerce because salmon is a commercial fishery. So
You have,
There's always a reason.
yeah, and I'll just opine for a minute. You know, we're concerned about our elections. We want the right people in there that are gonna do what we think, whichever side thinks is right, and it's important. Elections are important. But you need to, I would tell you, you need to be more concerned about these agencies that you have no control over, that can put their thumb on you in a heartbeat and you can't vote them out. You can't do any of that stuff. I would just say pay attention to that stuff, but it just is, they're everywhere. It's crazy.
in the 1980s, when I was learning about all this business, we of course had to deal with the aftermath of the eruption of Mount St. Helens and a tremendous amount of material coming down into the water, the sediment. And at that time, City of Longview's water intake system was at the Cowlitz, out of Cowlitz County, or Cowlitz River. And we were getting the screens plugged up on a regular basis. And so the simple solution is backwash the springs, or the screens to clean them out. And we got a notice from DOE that you can't do that because that was introducing foreign material back into the river. What? And at the time we had a a member of the council who had worked with DOE at Weyerhaeuser at the paper mills and was used to dealing with, the water quality expert. And he said, let me see what he can do. And he came back several weeks later. He says, I've got them to sign off on the fact that we don't have to do that. And we were very, happy that, we were able to make that connection. The guy retired at the end of the month and the new person came in and reversed the whole thing. And we actually had to collect the sediment and take it to the landfill. Yeah. And I guess rates went up. Yeah. Crazy. So rules-
Anyway, that's just a story on. You
We
need
do
to
that
pay
all the
attention
time.
to other, yeah. And now we got till 10 so we'll open for public comment. Because I see you raising your hand, Flo, so come on up.
Okay. This probably doesn't sound that great, but there was an old saying about sometimes the penalty is less than the restriction. I'm not wording that correct, but what if they ignored? What is the penalty for ignoring that agency? I mean, what authority do they have? Can they levy a fine? And do they have that authority? Maybe you just kind of go, forget it, and tell them just to, turn around and go ahead and do what you want to do. Maybe, maybe that's a solution as well. I think sometimes some of these agencies think they have more authority than they actually have.
They
you
have
just might try.
authority only as long as we
allow it.
obey. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I would tell you of a very successful resistance move, but I don't want to expose that to a problem. So I won't, but
Darn.
I like your approach.
Well, I don't mean to stir up trouble, but honestly, like you said, I mentioned it before. I had to purchase a hot water heater. I did not know that the new ones come with a little box on top that if they figure that the power grid is in jeopardy or whatever, they can turn my hot water heater off, by, I don't know, remote control. And this is my hot water heater. What if I have a generator and I'm totally fine, which we do?
That's
I mean,
why
that's
you need to go
control.
to engineering school so you can undo it.
Oh, we need to do that. Okay.
Or is it green?
But what I'm saying is sometimes I think there's just too much
It-
control.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I'm just pointing out to you that we spend a lot of time watching elections and trying to get whoever we believe will do the best job. We need to spend as much time or more on some of these departments and how they grow. And
Then how do you do that?
Wait,
I mean,
well,
we're willing to do it if you can show us how to, because these people are not elected.
that's where I disagree a little bit with the chairman, and that in fact it is an election issue, not here as much as in the legislature.
right.
And there are some people like Jim Walsh who will stand on his head to get things changed. And then others, you never hear from them because they're going along with everything. Oh, well, we need to do this. Oh, well, of course, that kind of nonsense.
Well, I'm against control. I would help.
So Flo, it's actually more insidious than what we've talked about. This is a one-party state. We have two political parties, but in terms of elections, the population is in Puget Sound and they vote Democrat. And until the Republicans figure out how to break through, we're going to be at their mercy. I tend to favor a separate state, but that's a little bit more complicated.
Although what you said is a fair statement, at some levels, it's difficult for me to tell a priori by looking at the votes or the write-ups. I don't know who's in which party. That hence the term the uniparty.
Yeah. Well, I opened up a little bit of can of worms, but I just found it one of those things where I just went, geez, We're open for public comment. We have a few minutes till Board of Health, if you have anything. If not, we'll just, we'll adjourn and then fire back up when Board of Health comes in. Okay, we will adjourn and we'll be back with Board of Health in about 12 minutes.
Welcome.
In fact, I didn't.
Welcome to the Board of Health meeting. We're going to call this meeting to order at 10:01. Thank you for coming. Got several things to do today. First thing up for to talk about is the minutes. Everybody get a copy of the minutes, and I read through them. They looked okay. I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the past meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the past minutes. Any discussion or questions about them? No? So then we'll put it up for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? No opposed, so it passes. Very good, easy. Next thing we have to do a little bit of cleanup work on the bylaws. This is the document of the bylaws that we passed a year and a half or 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. And we've had to do a few changes. There's been a few emails back and forth. The copy that the members have on the table here is what the lawyers and I've been calling the clean copy without the red lines. But basically, we're doing a few things to clean it up. Does anybody have any questions about that, first of all? The bylaws?
Maybe if you wouldn't mind going through the key changes
Yeah,
as succinctly as possible.
The key changes are in the membership. There's 3 members on the board. One of the board members by statute is not to have any kind of fiduciary obligation. So we have changed it to that one member has no fiduciary obligation, and we've removed it. The text was just kind of repeated. So that's the one thing. The second part is in.
Excuse me, that's the Article 3.
Sorry, I should say Article 3B, 1, 2, 3, and C. It's basically, we've removed the fiduciary obligation text from those members, except for the one member that has to have it. The next one was Article 4A1. Yeah.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. So our consumer advocate is without the fiduciary responsibility. That would be Ms. Stewart?
No, that's actually my position right now.
Oh.
Consumers of Public Health has no fiduciary responsibility according to the statutes. And when we wrote the bylaws, we made it for everybody. So, okay, going to the second part is Article 4A, number 1. This is a nice long paragraph that David Berger, I'd like to thank David Berger. I don't know if he's on or not, but David Berger has been really helpful in crafting the language of this. And basically, this is earlier this year, our terms had overlapped. And because the terms have overlapped, we had to re-elect the chairperson again. And so what this is just spells out what happens in the case that terms are overlapped again. And if the chairperson is reappointed, in this case, it was me. We don't have to re-elect me again because it was like 3 times in 1 year. And then that was basically, that's taking care of that. So the chair is not to be re-elected if it's been reappointed. The next thing was under Article 4A3A. Looks like the Board of Health may be, the clerk, the county clerk that's appointed by the Board of Health may be the county clerk of the Board of Commissioners, which is what it is. We're just getting the bylaws to reflect that. And moving down to Article 5A, which is meetings. We changed from quarterly meetings. Now we are doing monthly meetings at the end of the month. Those are the major changes.
In terms of the chairmanship of the board, that still is something that at the will of the board, so we could reappoint the chairman if we wished.
Oh, yeah.
As a board.
Yes, the chairman can be, well, the chairman is elected for 1 year, and if the chairman is a bad guy, yeah, the Board of Commissioners can get rid of you.
Well, they can't get him off the board, but they can move the chairmanship around.
There's some language in here for attendance you can get removed from the board, and I think there's some other, if you're really bad, you can get removed from the board. I don't remember what the language, but I know that was attendance. And it will be renewed. The chairmanship is only for 1 year, and it will be renewed each year at the first meeting of the year, calendar year. And yeah, the last one is at the very end, Article 8, in the bottom of the first big paragraph. It's again removing the shall have no material financial interest in rendering of health services. So that has been removed. So after reading through this,
Yeah, this is probably not pertinent, but I'm often bothered by quid pro quo kinds of things. I'm not going to give you $1. I'm just going to give your son the vice presidentship in my company. And there's no way to cover that, but we should always be alert for what is a quid pro quo.
do you think there's one in here now?
No.
No.
In fact, I really haven't done my homework and digested this enough. I'm just saying in general, the big picture is not just the dollars.
If you want to read it for you, if you like, it was.
No, I've got it right here.
Yeah,
Don't.
It's a little complex, but our attorney, David Berger, he wrote that and rewrote it with me because I was still confused on it, and he saw my point, so he added some more text, and he's very good at what he's doing. After reading through all this, so today, what I would do is I'd like to entertain a motion to accept these new changes. However, because of the bylaws, they won't go in effect till 10 days. So I think this would be a motion to accept the changes, and but we won't vote on that motion until the next meeting. Does that sound right? Or is it just a recommendation to accept? We can't, if we vote on it right now, technically it still has 10 days before it can be accepted.
You mean applied?
Applied.
But they do that routinely in the legislature. They'll vote on a deal, but it doesn't become effective till 60 days or 90 days. So I don't think if we chose to vote on it, that's an issue. It just won't be effective for that period of time.
That sounds better to me too. Okay, that's more clear. So then, yeah, I'd ask for a motion, to entertain a motion to accept these changes, and they won't go in effect for 10 days.
Yeah, I'd move to accept the changes that been outlined by you with the help of our legal.
Motion on the floor to accept the changes to the bylaws that will go in effect in 10 days. All in favor or any discussion?
I'm not sure that fits the language. It says that the bylaws can be amended at any regular meeting, but the last phrase says, provided that the rules have been submitted 10 days prior to that meeting.
Yep,
So we just got them today.
that's what,
So you can't pass them today.
that's how I kind of read it.
You
But-
gotta wait till the next meeting,
Oh.
which is okay. I mean, just following our own rules here. So we have to, had we got them 10 days ago, then that would have been different. So I guess. I
Yeah,
would-
that's different. You had to have them, we had to have them in our hands 10 days prior. That reads a little different, Kelly.
So that,
I
so
would recommend, though, that we just plan on making this the first order of business at our next meeting. That's only a month away, right?
yep. Okay, well,
Gee, and I was so agreeable today, I was gonna say yes.
okay, so then we will table this discussion and put it up for a vote the next time. That way everybody will have time to read. There's 2 copies. I believe the clerk has sent out both copies. Right now, you only have a copy of the clean one, but the other copy, you can see the red lines on it, and then it makes it more clear or more confusing, depending on the language you'd like. Okay, so we will put that for the next, a quick consent vote, I guess. Okay. Moving on, the next thing we'd like to talk about the school garden project. We had Ian, who is the head of the project, came and gave us a presentation a few months ago. And I'd like to see what kind of possibilities there are to help this project, because it did seem that the whole board, even though we have some new members on the board, it did seem that the board was liked his project, and it did seem to do some good for the community, especially the kids. And well, he's asking for some funding, so I'd like to just open it up for discussion on how we could possibly help him.
I hate to bring you up, Gina, but I think you gave us a list of things we could use, because we've talked about those foundational funds.
Mhm.
And this was one of the areas we could use out of that foundational funds.
Yeah, I think that it is an
It
appropriate
would-
use of that
it would
fund.
fit in there?
Mhm,
Okay.
yeah. One of the things that we started talking about last meeting too was issuing a request for proposals. I know legal recommends issuing a competitive bid process when we're looking at awarding funds. So I think if the Board of Health is supportive of that type of project or those types of projects, and we've started putting some language together that would look at healthy activities geared towards youth for a request for proposals, then we could move forward with that and issue that as a bid process.
So Gina, how would we know if the money has been well spent? What kind of objectives do we need to be looking for?
So that's something included in this bid process, is that if an agency then is submitting a proposal, they would outline what their objectives are and how they would measure, what their activities are and how it will impact who they're serving. So that's something that would be included in the proposal that would be evaluated.
And I can't remember, was the request for continuing funding or a one-time only grant?
It hasn't been clarified yet. He was asking for some staff, but I've talked with some of the other people on the board, and there'd be the staffing to renew it every year is kind of problematic. So one of the discussions that had came up was a one-time grant that could be renewed, or I don't know if it's grant, if that's if that's the term, but funding for 1 year and could possibly be renewed the next year.
I remember a little bit of the discussion, and part of, for me, was it's clear it's a wonderful organization, largely volunteer. And the creep of organizations is to start with something amazing and then walk its way into hiring staff, which then in turn wants to hire more staff. And there's a danger there. As long as Ian's here, I doubt we have that danger, but we make decisions that are predicated on a system as opposed to an individual. And I had no problem trying to suggest we would buy equipment, sheds, wheelbarrows, whatever else might be needed, but we were told at that time, no, we got lots of that. We just need to pay people. And I'm ambivalent there. I just don't know. But it's not a continuous commitment. And I always look at when we bring people on board and pay them, there is, in my book, an implied, what's the word I'm looking for? An implied obligation.
Expectation.
Yeah. And so I hesitate to start that without the certainty that we are doing the right thing.
Yeah, I would agree that I don't know that the board should jump off and say, okay, here's some new yearly expense that we want to add to the burden of the taxpayer. But on the other hand, I'd like to see if we can help the project some way. I just don't know how. Looking at the sheet that Gina gave us a couple weeks ago, there is a column on here, or a row, for enhanced school and community gardens, and there is a budget of $50,000 that was just put in there, but that's not being used right now.
That was just sort of a guesstimate of, yeah, so.
So it's not an actual budget. This is just a proposal.
Right. And what I think, and to answer part of your question about a year-to-year contract, when we do these requests for proposals and select someone to contract with, we typically do at least start with a 1-year contract and then reevaluate at the end of that year. And at that point can decide to do another year contract or let it expire. So that's kind of typically how we have it.
Is there a current contract now? From my understanding, there isn't.
No, there's not a current contract, but going through the bid process and then issuing a contract, it's typically how it happens.
It sounds like what you've been kind of instructed or suggested to by legal team is to open this up to a request for proposal, and your guidelines around that proposal will be things that enhance schools. And this garden could fit into that. There could be something else that fits in that. We don't know.
Correct.
But you're kind of being told it should be kind of opened up and a little bit broad so you can see what comes in.
Yeah. Legal suggests a competitive bid process when we're looking at allocating resources. We did start drafting some language, and I'm happy to share that out. We did keep it sort of broad, but geared towards youth. And so sort of healthy activities around youth that would include potentially school garden activities or other gardening projects, as well as youth substance abuse, things like that. So it would, any type of healthy or wellness activity geared towards youth is kind of what we were looking at it through that lens, as that's been some of the discussion we've had here with the Board of Health.
I would not be in favor of opening up to an RFP. I think I'd be much more in favor of saying we have a proven item here. Let's do a pilot program, and we can revisit that if we need to.
I'm good with that too. I thought what he did was made a lot of difference, and I'm good with that too, just.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing. That's exactly what I was thinking. Just call it a pilot project
Yeah.
and make the money available.
I mean, we've done it
Short
for,
length of time.
we've done it for other entities that have just come in and done that, and we like the program. I'm good with that.
Yeah, good, I appreciate that. The RFPs would invite, yeah, enough said.
Well, and I understand why legal likes that process, right?
Yep, that's their duty to advise us properly.
Yeah.
Just for my own curiosity, Gina, how much does an RFP process cost the county?
It doesn't cost much at all. It's, you pay to advertise in the paper when you post it. And then it's just staff time reviewing the proposals that come in. But it's not a cost, it's not a high cost process.
So how much time have you already spent on it? You said you started drafting up some things.
We drafted some language, but we have an RFP template. And so it's more of a plug and play. So, I've maybe spent an hour or so putting some language together just to be prepared. But yeah.
May I suggest that I think a pilot project is a great idea, would like some objectives of, what this money is going to fund and how are we going to know that the pilot project was successful. But then also opening an RFP. So that, because my understanding is we have additional funds that haven't been allocated. And maybe there's other great opportunities out there that we just don't even know about yet. We know about the community gardens and we're very much in support of that. So yes, for the pilot project, but should we look to see what else is out there?
Well, my own feeling is that the garden project so far has been doing really well and not costing much. And I'm one of the mind to, if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Perhaps I could break it. Many years ago when I was the Southwest Regional Airport, the manager was interested in trying to get a few senior high school students to learn how to fly. And the thing that makes that so attractive is the principle that in order to fly, you have to learn a lot of things. In the gardens, that's the same thing. And I'm thinking that we could actually expand that into something like a chemical analysis lab so people can really understand pH, and some plants like this and some don't. We are bombarded with this climate change nonsense all the time, yet we know that growers pump carbon dioxide into their greenhouses in order to get additional plant growth. I can just see a whole experiment theory going that would really teach wide disciplines, and doesn't mean every student needs to embrace all disciplines. They'll be, I like this, I like that kind of thing. The other thing is the common theme to a successful program is seldom the money, it's the heart and soul. And Ian presented that quite nicely, and that's what I'm afraid to forgo. When I get 5 RFP responses, I don't know these people. They just see an opportunity to do what? Why didn't they do it before? Have they contacted Ian to see if they could help him as a volunteer? You open up a Pandora's box in my book, and it goes back to if it ain't broke argument.
And I'd also say to Ian that if a pilot project is approved here by the board, there will be expectations, as Karen had mentioned, and possibly just to make sure you're motivated, well, could open up to somebody else someday. Hopefully you're doing a good job, and I think that's how everything does. It works, should work anyways, that if you're doing a good job, your competitors aren't going to take over.
I think as a pilot program, we have to be a little cautious on early expectations. In the business world, if you have a business plan and you say you're going to get payback, you're going to break even at the end of 3 years, you will be hailed as a hero. I think here I can just see some of his graduates coming to present us what they've learned regarding grafting of trees or election
Yeah.
of some kind.
Yeah.
A couple other maybe different perspective. The school garden project is awesome. It's excellent. I couldn't say enough good things about it. I do worry a little bit about, I think a couple of the commissioners brought up when we talked about it before, giving government funds and ruining the program because of expectations and rules that are put on it. I worry Ian's done such an excellent job of building the program and managing it. If he begins to receive funds from us, are there going to be other expectations? Maybe not immediately, but down the road put on him that's going to usurp some of his management abilities or, authority. Maybe that's a better word. I also worry, especially thinking about the RFP, is it our role to fund every excellent program that's out there? I feel like we might be opening up a Pandora's box of, there are a lot of excellent programs that are run out there. And again, this is no reflection on the school gardens. Like, it's a wonderful program, but I worry about what later expectations are out there if we begin to fund a program because it's an excellent program. Does that kind of make sense? So just another perspective and some concerns, I guess.
I think I agree. You probably have to be a little careful with that, but when you think about it, if we have history on a program, they take Habitat, we did Habitat Direct, we did Family Promise Correct, and we had those same concerns. And in fact, when Commissioner Mortensen and I had a chance to visit over there, they don't take some federal funds because it would require them to change some of the way they operate. And Habitat's the same way. We get a chance to see these programs and see how they work, then I'm okay funding them direct because I know how they're working. Where that comes in is down the line over time, we got to make sure they're still following their principles. I think, and we've expressed that to Habitat. We don't want to change the way you operate. You operate the way you operate. We just want to help you get to the end and produce what you're producing. And the same thing goes for Family Promise. The same thing would go here. So I think sometimes the direct funding, when they've already proven what they can do, actually is less risky than an RFP where you can throw some fancy words on a paper and maybe get some money.
And I like the idea though that we have to have, in order to renew it the next year, if it was going to be renewed, we'd have to have some kind of evidence. And one thing what somebody said was the graduating student's testimony, if we could have that. But I'd like to ask the board, what other things would we want to see? More schools or more fruit produced? I don't know.
I think one of the things you can always measure is level of participation.
Yeah.
So we want to see that it's at least maintaining level of participation, hopefully growing a little bit. And one comment about RFPs, and maybe I have a little bit different idea about these. To me, an RFP doesn't obligate us to anything. And services that are already in place can submit an RFP and say, hey, here's why I would like the funding. So we could look at those that we already know and they've got established objectives and results that we believe in. So an RFP doesn't mean it's got to be a new idea or a new proposal, nor does it obligate us. It just gives us information then to look at and evaluate.
Yeah. And
Good point.
Not totally opposed to them. I'm just trying to cut the timeline here. It's a good program. Let's get them going.
And I totally agree. That's why I think, because we all think the school gardens is very worthwhile, doing a great job. Yes, let's move forward and do an RFP. if there's additional funds available. So, because my understanding is we don't have a specific number of funds for school
Right.
gardens. So maybe there's other things out there that we would additionally find that we would want to fund.
No,
We're thinking.
And I understand that RFPs involve work because you have to then review each of them and discuss each of them. So I get that part of it.
And like I say, there is a cost associated with just RFPs. And so just my feeling is if you see the program working, maybe we should just continue with it versus opening it up to, it could be, you know, a lot of new projects, and then we end up, oh, well, now we're going to have 2 or 3 different kind of projects that are all good. They all sound good. And so we're going to spend even more. Just my feelings.
I'll step out a little bit here, but we're kind of at the point where we were with Habitat. We wanted to do something, but they didn't give us a figure. So I'd encourage Eden to maybe give us a figure here and
Yeah,
an opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, I had talked to Ian a couple of months ago about a rough number. I think we had talked about at 150,000, but if he wants to come up and talk more about that, I'm happy to invite him up to do that.
Well, actually, what I'd suggest perhaps is to request that Gina work with Ian to develop a proposal to bring back to us that we can.
Like next month.
Yeah.
And we only meet once a month, so there may be a time element involved. But if we make a recommendation that the board consider a proposal from Ian after consultation with Gina, that might help us move forward with that.
I like that idea.
I agree with that completely.
Okay.
Would you like to make that into a motion?
I just did. I
Just
did. I'll make
It's a
that motion.
Okay, so motion on the floor is to have the school gardens director meet with HHS and Gina and to come back to us before next month's meeting with a proposal.
I would modify that. You don't need to over constrain it by saying by next month. There's a maturity when they feel comfortable that they have something and present it.
I was just thinking because he asked so many months ago.
Yeah.
But okay, well.
As soon as possible is good.
As soon
too.
as possible. There you go.
And can we assume that if the motion is approved, that gives a suggestion, a recommendation to the board of commissioners to go forward with?
Oh, yes.
So that we don't have to wait a whole another month.
Yeah.
If there's something ready to go in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Okay. yeah,
So you're saying, so the proposal to the board with the same would be forwarded on to the commissioners, okay? Would you like to restate that motion then?
Oh, that's tough.
I didn't want to try it.
I just want the proposal to be available. The proposal to be available to the Board of Commissioners.
So the motion on the floor is a proposal to be made as soon as possible. That will come back with the funding, the requested amounts, and it would be a proposal that would be sent on to the commissioners if this board approves it.
So let me change the wording. I move that the Board of Health recommend to the Board of Commissioners to consider a proposal on the school gardens that has been developed between the program and the department.
Well, but then don't we,
Yeah.
didn't that take the board out though? The Board of Health out of the loop?
Yeah, I think the sequence really, the Board of Health has to look at it, pass it.
And make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, well then the original motion stands then.
Yeah. Mr. Webb was just trying to shrink the timeline.
Gotcha. So original motion is to have the school gardens director and HHS and Gina come together, come up with a proposal as soon as they can for this board to review and recommend to the Board of Commissioners. Does that sound right?
Except for the last sentence is not necessary.
Yeah, sorry. To consider a recommendation. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion, any further discussion on that? Let's take a vote. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'd say aye as well. It passes. Okay,
Did you say?
we're moving the ball along. Okay. Next item on our agenda, water testing. I think Commissioner Mortensen brought it up at the meeting, last meeting, or the meeting, I think it was the last meeting. And that was the first that I had heard of arsenic concerns in our water. And to me, that's why I put it on the agenda today, because that's pretty much a Board of Health kind of thing. Better take care of the water supply. We received a letter from Kathy Cochran, who I don't know, that this letter was submitted to the board. Did everybody get a copy of that? Yeah. And it talks about alternative drinking water program that the state is allowing funds for, and we can apply for funds. I did a little bit of homework, but I'd like to just open it up to some discussion on that. That I think that well properties with wells on them, private wells, should be able to come to the county, HHS probably, to get their water tested if they suspect a contaminant like that.
As opposed to going to some other testing agency?
Well, I think that's the question here, is if this should be just private well owners need to take care of it, it's their own responsibility.
No, the question is, do you mandate it and who pays for it?
Well, yeah, don't want to get too far down that road because people can abuse it and people might want their water tested every 2 days. And so, yes, I can see abuse.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready to go down that rabbit hole. That I'm on a well system. I could have it tested anytime I want to. But what we're talking about here is somebody else paying for your test. And when that happens, I think I read a brief from our council that one place when they started that, and then it ends up in rules and regs, and then it has to be monitored by certain things. And I don't think you want to open that door. I think any well owner can have their stuff. If they have a concern, they can have it tested right now. They can take a sample down and it'll be tested. And the ask was, do we want to pay for it? And I'm going, it's their well. It's my well. Why should somebody else pay for my well?
And the next thing is liability. No, actually, the next thing is a far more evil thing, which is it's voluntary today. How about tomorrow?
It won't be voluntary tomorrow. Now we do tests for group wells that we're responsible for, that we've taken on. And I understand that because we have some kind of responsibility over that, but I don't think I need to infringe on private well owners.
Yeah, I know legal had sent some feedback about water testings. We can continue to have a conversation with them about that, but I think they brought up some concerns about going down that road. And so while I think, we would like to still, put out some education and do some outreach about what having arsenic in your water means and how to test it and what to do about it and those kinds of things. We'd still like to do some of that education.
Yeah.
There's more to flesh out if we do want to try to, look at going down the road of offering testing.
And we had a person comment on it last time, is that, the levels have changed. Arsenic's been in the water for, this isn't a brand new thing. It's just now it's whatever it is that they keep bringing the bar down. So now it's a problem. Well, I don't know if it's a problem.
So one of the things that I found interesting when I was reading up on this, and the researcher from, I believe it's WSU, that's looking at the arsenic in the wells, one of the findings was that many of the wells are over old mining sites, which I thought was very, very interesting. It might be helpful if, and I'm sure there's one available, some map of these old mining sites, so that the property owners that are in any sort of that location could go, here is another reason I might want to get my well tested. I mean, I would be curious because I wouldn't necessarily know if I was anywhere within an old mining site. So I think that might be the next step that we take in continuing our role in educating people about this is, hey, here are some high-risk areas for arsenic.
We spoke about a web page or web link. Is there anything on the HHS website now related to water specifically?
There is, and arsenic. There is some information about arsenic that has been on our website for a couple of years. We would like to beef it up a little bit and get some more information out. And kind of what you're talking about with a map was sort of our initial idea with offering testing, was to then be able to offer some type of map that might show, not addresses or anything like that, but like hot zones, for example, of where higher arsenic concentration has shown up so that people are aware. But we can look at different ways to do some of that. And we did reach out to that researcher and hope to get a copy of his final report when he's done.
I think that's a good idea you offered.
Yeah, I think so too. Do we need to make that into a motion for you, Gina, or you can just add that to the page?
No, we'll just continue to work on it and get some more information up. And as we get more information, I think we'll look at doing kind of a strong social media campaign as well, just to get some more information and to push out. So yeah, we can move forward with that.
So you'll be able to give us an update at our next meeting?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would help quite a bit. Yeah, testing is, anybody can test their well. According to the State Department of Health page, it's between $20 and $40. Do you know anything different than that?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is locally, but.
You can buy online. There's lots of tests as well. eBay, Walmart sells them as well. And then if you know that there's arsenic in your water, you can buy an arsenic filter. So, but those are $2,000. Not that I think I'd rather change the source than try and filter it, but maybe the filter works.
You know how much it costs to drill a new well?
Yeah, probably a lot more than the
go through a lot
filter.
of filters, my
Yeah,
friend.
you're probably right. Yeah, so that filter might be worth it. Okay, well, that's basically what I wanted to talk about on that. Anybody have further discussion on the water testing? Okay. See, we still have some time. We do. We're moving along. Well, I'll bring up the project that has been near and dear to my heart anyways, is youth substance abuse prevention program. At the next meeting, I'd like to get into it a little bit more. But I just want to say that I think that there's a school that is out there that's willing to help us. And I think prevention is one of the best ways to combat the drug problem. And I furthermore think that there is money to be spent there, the opioid money that I believe is already there. You don't have to come back up. And if anybody else had any comments on that?
Yeah, I'm going to describe something that I think is important. It's got, it will probably get some people angry, but with Dr. Krager here, he'll help me. Maybe. We've been struggling with the same thing, just say no, dare, yakety yak, and we've been doing this for 50 years or more, and we clearly aren't on the right track. So I'm not as sanguine as some might be that just talking to somebody is going to take care of the problem. What I can suggest, though, is that there might be a longer term a solution that we can achieve over time. And it's something like there's a patient and a doctor. The government and other agencies insist on introducing themselves between the doctor and the patient. That is an evil thing right off the bat. Let me expand that to say the doctor now is constrained from prescribing any of the class drugs. What if we removed all of that? And I know we can't do it, but we can start thinking about it and maybe figure out how we can help along those lines. Let it be a decision between the patient and the doctor. Hi, doc. I need another oxycodone. I'm in trouble and I'm hooked. Well, the doctor then says, well, how about if I do a program here to taper you off and get you off of that? No, doc, I'm not set for doing that. Well, I'm not going to help you then. Okay, so then this addict goes to another doctor, and eventually there'll be an agreement between patient and doctor that it's the business of the patient and the doctor. In the end, what you have done there is taken the profit out of drugs in the street. And that is why we are never successful, because there is profit there. In fact, there's huge profit by every possible agency in the world. Take the profit out, leave the penalties for importation and all that kind of stuff in place, and keep in mind that of all the people, and I'm going to do it kind of put my finger up in the wind, is like, of all the people that die of, say, a fentanyl overdose, I would guess very few of those are intentional, and most of them are unintentional because they're buying stuff off the street. Utter nonsense. So in time, I think we would take away the problem, not condoning it, just understanding that we have been grossly unsuccessful and grossly harmful to society in the paths we pursue.
I agree with what you're saying. As I said, I wasn't prepared to get into it too much, so I put it on the agenda if time. And so I think I'd like to go further into at least my idea, which is very different than any of what you just said, at the next meeting, to give you a better, understanding of it. I would like to ask, though, is there a social host ordinance in our county? Social host, that's the term that I was given. Social host ordinance is some type of an ordinance that says you can't have a party for underage minors. You can't have for kids. And that the adult who's throwing that party or hosting that party would have a penalty. Is there any, do we have any kind of law like that? Does anybody know?
I don't look
lots
for
of
stuff
laws,
like
I don't
that.
know.
Lots of laws. Okay.
Parents don't get in trouble for serving liquor to minors? The consequences are certainly there. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up then. Okay, that was just my question. So at that,
Ballot box thing. I left my walker to walk. This is screwed up. Gotta fire that guy, fire those two.
for the ballot boxes?
I never seen an organization so poorly managed as I have with this commissioner's office. And I've been in the world for 80 years. I also taught total quality management.
Well, so with,
I tell you, the county would do a lot better if they fired those commissioners over there.
well, on that segue,
I wanted to cast my vote. I don't want to be disturbing your meeting, right? But I'm in a position where I don't have many options. I'm not going to keep coming back to try to tell you that anybody on crutches trying to post a ballot at the ballot box that's supposed to be out there ain't going to have a chance to do it. So I'm walking without my walker because I'm so infuriated at the stupidity of how you manage this county. Never seen such poor management in all my life. You don't even know, and you're an elected official, throw that word out. You don't even understand the predicates that govern the society. Neither one of these.
so the public comment period is opened.
I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to play games with some political ignoramuses.
Thank you. I, just from what he said, it sounds like the handicapped are not able to reach the ballot box. If that's the case, the assessor needs to look into that,
Or the auditor.
or auditor, sorry, auditor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so would anybody else like public comment period
Did
is
something
open?
to him evidently at Fiber Federal, and he hasn't liked me ever since, although I don't remember the conversation. It must have been a doozy.
You should have covered that check.
Yeah.
Anybody would open it up for public comment if you have comments.
It does seem to me, Mr. Chairman, that the topic of the youth substance abuse prevention programs would lend itself very well to a request for proposals. I think it is something that schools have been looking at for years, and they do some monitoring. And there has been a county-funded program focused on Castle Rock, a committee of volunteers at the Castle Rock Coalition on Tobacco and Substance Abuse, or Alcohol and Substance Abuse. The question I always have is, how do we know it's effective? And that's the huge problem. So a request for proposal would need to include the measurements. How do we know we're being successful if you successfully do that grant? But again, part of the problem is exactly what Commissioner Mortensen talked about. That has to be carried out over a long period of time, which is not something we usually deal with. You know, we can't authorize a 10-year, 20-year program. Just, it doesn't get funded that way. So I'm sympathetic, and we have more resources now than we have had to address it. I'm just interested to see what kind of program would actually work. And I'm not exactly sure how, what Commissioner Mortensen's concept where we rely on the doctor and patient as the solution. I don't know how that would be helped by government intervention. I think you're making the point, keep the government out of it.
Yeah.
But then that brings up the question is, how often are you able to actually see your own doctor? Maybe once a year. There's not enough doctors. So, I mean, there's all kinds of barriers to how to help people do the right thing. But at any rate, a request for proposals I think would fit that very well in terms of what is out there. What are the kind of programs are out there that people have tried? We know what hasn't worked.
Good comments.
I
Good
think
morning.
Thomas Sowell has a comment about that.
What does Thomas Sowell say on that?
It'd take me a moment to dig it up, but the essence of it says just about everything has been tried before, and I'll yield back to you, but it's a pertinent comment. I'll look for it.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I like.
No,
Thomas.
it's a good thing. Thomas Sowell has some great insight,
He's
but we
great.
continually try to recycle the same programs, and that's basically what he's trying to say. The more we try to squeeze on things, the more we get the government involved in deciding for you how you should lead your life, the bigger the problems are. And the bigger the problems are, we need more government to help fix the problems, and it goes on and on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Am I okay to go?
Yeah, please.
Anyway, I'm Rose Ruiz, and I just wanted to make a comment that in the last 2 or 3 years, the book, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Anyway, when Trump wins, he's going to be part of the administration, and all the junk that Bill Gates and Tedros and all them put into our food system, all the dyes and the incredible fertilizer that goes in our food. Anyway, that's all going to be cleaned. So they're going to start with a clean slate. So our health will be much better. And anyway, I just really wanted y'all to know that I've listened to him, I've watched him, and he like put us in like a stop thing on his presidency to join Trump. And anyway, but what he's got going forward is absolutely wonderful. And all these mental health issues, when you stop putting the fertilizer and all that crap in there, in the food, it'll be okay. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that Robert F. Kennedy is joining the campaign to do right to make America healthier again, because other countries don't have, they're banned. A lot of our chemicals are banned in the other countries, and they don't have obesity problems, okay? Anyway, at this time, I thank you for your giving me time.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? No, with that, I think we'll keep on schedule and close this meeting at 10:58. Adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening.